Hello guys, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to briefly go over, or as briefly as I can, go over doing ASM, classic, so ARM VNet migration. So let's get started. So first thing I'm going to do is this link will be on the on the comments of the recording, or the description rather. The migration, I'm going to use the steps that are provided in the Microsoft docs. And before you start doing the migration, you need to make sure you go through um, this information. There are little different tabs here. Make sure you go through all of them before you actually do the migration, because this will tell you what would work and whether or not your current environment can be migrated. I'm not going to go through it now because it's a lot of steps, but make sure you go through that. You go through the deep dive, and you go through the planning before you actually do the migration. All right, I've already gone through all these steps a couple of times. So what I did was I created a classic environment, and I try to put most of them. I didn't. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna get all of the errors that you normally get during migration, but I try to capture as much as I could. And then now I'm going to go through the migration for you to see how the flow. Okay, so let's see. Basically, I'm just going to go through the migration steps here, starting from step one. All right, the step one just goes over the best practice. Step two is to make sure you have the latest PowerShell. It says you need to be in PowerShell, Azure PowerShell 2.1. You can confirm what your PowerShell level is if you do get let's take into one to go. Okay, get module. Just do Azure. All right, I'm on. This is how you get the latest. So you can confirm what version you're on by doing that. If you have anything 2.0 and below, you will need to upgrade. Since I'm 4 point something, means I'm good. So here it mentions that your account must be an admin on the subscription. So basically, you must have either an administrator or co-admin on that subscription table to do the migration. My account is, you can check that. Let's see if I can see here. It says I need to go to, let's see, it doesn't show, it says I need to go to the new portal, but so if I come in here, new portal, go to my subscription. This is the subscription we're working with. And so you can give the owner rights, but you also have to make sure you get this next to it. So you can either be a service administrator or a co-admin to be able to do the migration. If let's say you come into the new portal and you see something is just owner, you might have problems logging into the classic portal. Normally, to switch that, you can just right-click on the account and you have the option here to switch it to a co-administrator. Um, okay. So let's go down. So now we are going to get into the PowerShell section of it. Okay, let me see if I can drag this way. What I've done is I've moved everything out of. Now this is gonna look gonna be looking a little weird. So I've moved everything in here into this little script. into a little PowerShell script to make it easier for me. So before I go through the steps here, I'm just going to go ahead and fill out these variables. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it a VNet name. Let's show. Is that all of it? Oof, that's a little bit too small. Let's just come back here. And all the VMs are in, what is it called, West US 2 or East US. So and finally I'll get storage out of here. I gotta go to new portal. Sorry, most of the things have moved back and forth, so you have to, be flexible with that. All right, I get the storage name here. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is the VNet migration, not the, if you're in a cloud service, I'm actually doing the VNet migration. I'll get down to the bottom of it where I'll show you that, but let's go down. So I put all these other variables that I'm going to be using for this, so I'll go ahead and just apply those to my session. And once I have those, I'll continue with my script here. So the first step is to log into the ARM portal. So I'll go ahead and run the login. All right, so it's logged me in. The second step here is to basically get to find out all your subscription. I know my subscription ID, but I'm still just going to run it so that you can actually see that. I didn't put that up there because I already found that and put that in. But if you run this, it will give you the name of your subscription. And then the second command here is to select the subscription that you're going to be using. I've already put in the ID here, so I'm just going to run my line here. I will select, it's the same thing. So once you select the subscription, coming down here, you have to register the resource provider for the migration. So let's go ahead and register it. Okay. Now, if you look at the status here, it says registering. Now, one thing that people always miss here, if you look down here, it specifically says you have to give it a couple of minutes, and that this status should be registered before you're good to go. So let's go ahead and run this here. It still says registering. So technically, which means you should not continue with the migration. But what we're going to go ahead and do to save time is we're going to go ahead and just come back to that. So let's go ahead and log in to the Classic. Just this step here. Okay, and once we've logged into the Classic, let's just go ahead and also select the subscription for the Classic. Okay, that is done. Now let's go ahead and let's loop back here and check if our provider is registered. Good. So it's registered, which means we're good to continue. And we're now on step 5. Now, what you're gonna this step 5 here, what it does is check to see if you have enough resources to do the migration. Uh, for example, cores and everything like that. Um, the trick, there's something that is not mentioned in here that you can look, because let's go ahead and run this and I'll show you. Let's say you run this here. Okay, well, now we get problems. So we ran the script, nothing happens. This is a popular thing that people see. Sometimes you think the script is not working or your PowerShell is not working, but that is not the case. The reason why you're getting this here is because the resource is not registered yet for the RM. So I'm going to go ahead and just open this up here. So to get details from that, you need to go into the subscription again. I should have the subscription stuff right here. Going to the subscription and going to resource providers. This is because I do not have any RM VM, so some of the resources for RM are not registered. And I think that one goes on the compute. Let me see. So the compute is not registered, so I'm just going to go ahead and register that also. And we'll give it a few minutes to register. It's registering. So while this is registering, I'll show you what I wanted to show you initially. It's all in the subscription. So let's say you were trying to get usage, you're trying to know how much you're using currently to be able to know how much you need in the RM side of things. You can actually come into the same subscription and go into usage coder or usage and coder. And this will tell you how many cores you're using. So this will basically give you a baseline of what you need. See, this is classic. And also on the storage account, you're only using one. This will give you a baseline of what you need to have on the RM side of things for the migration to be successful. So let's go into here. We're still registering. Okay, so once it's registered, now we can come back into a PowerShell here. Oops, we're actually using the ISC. Now we can come into a PowerShell and run the same command again. Now it should give us an output of what we have available in the usage in the RM, right? So we're only using, in Classic, we're only using 4 and we have 100 available. So we're good for, at this point, we're good for migration, looking at this information here. All right. So next step we're going to do now is run the validation. Oh, sorry. 6.1 is here. It's for the cloud service, but as I mentioned, we're doing a VNet migration. So we're gonna skip 6.1, and then we're gonna come down to, where is it? 6. Oops, skip it. 6.1 option 2, the VNet migration. Okay. It says to set up your VNet name, but we already got that and already set that up, so we're good. Um, next step here is to do validation. So I'm just gonna go ahead and run the validation like it says here, and let's see what we get. Oops, did I run it? Now the validation is not. It's not that you can run this like days and even weeks before you're getting ready to migrate. This just checks what you need to do in order to do your migration. It gives you like a baseline, or what you need to, the whole steps that you need to do before you can actually do a migration. All right. So as you can see here, from the command that is on the document, it's validation failed, but the failed message is like doesn't have any information, so you really don't know um, what to look at or what. So normally what I do is I expand that. I'll run it like this first, and then I'll show you what I do next. So if you run it like to just get the validation messages, it should spit out a whole bunch of things like this. This is also a little bit complicated, or because it's in PowerShell. You can either copy and paste it, or you can just send it over to a notepad. VNet 1.txt. All right, and then once that's open, you can do okay. Basically, this is where the actual real work starts. To get your VNet ready for the migration. So I'm going to briefly, well, I'm going to try to explain this as best as I can, so you can understand how to read this uh, this file. So the first line here tells you that the whole VNet migration can be done, right? It's not supported. The second line now goes into why. See here, it says to look at the coder. That's a problem with the coder. Um, so that's why it's not doing it in that. And then it comes down again saying the reason why there's a problem with the coder is because of the availability set coder not found. Um, So we'll get to look at that in a minute, but let's go into the individual. So this one just tells us about the original VNet of itself. Then it comes down into like the first step here tells you that this deployment or this cloud service cannot be migrated. That's all it's saying, right? And then it comes down here and gives you one reason why this cannot be migrated, because the host service DV MIG test contains VMs that is not part of the availability set. So these three are just talking about the virtual network. So it's a little bit confusing. Yeah, I know. These two are just talking about the actual deployment, not any VMs, just the deployment itself, right? And when you look at these ones now, let's see, 1, 2, 3 here. It's also to mention the deployment here, but it's also talking about the individual VMs. So what I'm going to do is I normally like to walk a little bit backwards here, because everything has to be successful before it goes before the whole thing goes up. So you take it up. So I come down here, right, and I start with the virtual machine here, this one. And I look at it, so it's saying it cannot be migrated for two reasons. These two are two reasons why this cannot be migrated, this VM. One, because there's a BG info. Now, note that this is a warning, but normally when you're doing this, you want to make sure there's no warnings, because sometimes warning means it might fail, it might not fail. So the best solution is to make sure you don't have any warnings within your validation script. So this is telling me that this is failing because of the BG info extension, and also because of the backup extension. So once I see these two, I'll go ahead and jump into the portal and try to fix those. All right. So I'll go here and I'll go into the actual virtual machine. That was virtual machine 1. And I'll go into extensions. Okay, and so normally it's a good idea to make sure that no extensions are there. I'm not sure why you didn't pick up on the diagnostics extension, but it's a good idea to make sure none of the extensions this is blank, the extension list here. So I'm just going to go ahead and take all of them out now. So I'm going to go here and go to BG info and I say delete. Okay. And when that is getting deleted, I'll look at the V2 also. You see the V2 also has the backup. It also has the BG info, and it also has ACL endpoints. Okay, perfect. All right, let's look what we have here. So that is gone. The BG info is gone. The next, I'll also go ahead and delete the diagnostics. It's updating the VM. Let's come back in there. Come on. Well, while that is going on, the snapshot recovery, this one is very critical because if you delete the extension here, the backup service is just going to go ahead and put it back. So what you need to do for that one is you need to, first, before you delete the extension, you need to go into the recovery service. And go into the backups. Oops. Sorry, not this one. Let's go overview. And 2 items backup. So go in there. So 2 VMs. Stop backup. Retain the copy. Do not delete the copy for now. Let's see others. Demo. You can give it whatever reason you want, or say migration. Then stop. I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other one since I'm already here. Okay, and while that is getting stopped, I'll jump back over to my virtual machine. We'll be on 1, right? And I'll check my extensions. And I'll delete the diagnostic extension too. All right, so while that is getting deleted, let's see if we can. Looking at this one, DV2 here has it's also not valid for migration because of an ACL. So what that means is that if we go into the portal for 2, go to endpoints, means I have an ACL on my endpoint which is not supported. See here it says 1 on this endpoint. Oops. So you double click on it, open it up, and you delete the ACL. And save that. While that is saving on that machine, sorry, I'm jumping back and forth to save time. Go down into extensions again. Okay, our backups have stopped. So we're good to remove the snapshot. Now this backups and these extensions, this is now you do this on the day. You remember I told you that the validation can run it like weeks before to identify the problems. But once you identify the problems, you know how, when you're ready to fix, especially for the backups and the extensions, you want to make sure that's one of the, like a couple of hours before you do the migration so that you don't lose any data. The backup, let's say if you back up at night, after your nightly backup, then you can remove all these extensions because you have a valid backup before you go through the steps. You don't want to remove them like 2 weeks before you do your migration. So now all the extensions are gone from the V1. So let's go to the V2. Let's go to extensions. All right, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing here. Okay, so we've removed all the extensions also on the V2. So just for checking, what we're going to do is let's go back here, and I'm just going to go ahead and run this validation again. Sometimes it takes a while, but let's see what we have. Okay, so you see this error right here because we just made some changes to the VM, and basically it's updating. It's updating in the back end, so you get this error message here saying that this is an unknown state. These are the states that are supported. So because I just made some changes, so normally it takes about 10-15 minutes for the for it to actually register, and then this should be fine. But you see now we only have these 2 here for the unknown states. So we're going to go ahead and move on to troubleshooting the deployment here. Now this one, it's a little bit poor planning. If you see something like this, it's a little bit poor planning because the reason why you're getting that here, I'll show you. Oops. So the reason why you're getting that is because if you go to the portal and the cloud service here, there are two VMs in the cloud service. Does it show them here? The two VMs in the cloud service basically, and instances, right? Two VM identical, but the problem is that these two VMs they're not in an availability set. One of them is in an availability set, but for the migration to work, if you have the VMs in a cloud service, they both need to be. If you have VM in the cloud service and there's an availability set in that cloud service, they both need to be on that availability set. That is part of the information in the plan here, the planning here of the VM of the migration. So let's go here and let's see. So you have an option to either just remove the availability set, but that's going to cause more problems. So what we're going to do is uh, just add that other, oops, right here. Just add this VM to the cloud service. So luckily we're in the classic. Well, this is a migration for the classic. Else you have to recreate the VM. Never mind that. But so that's a simple drop down, select the availability set and save. And say yes. Now, while that is doing and updating, that might also restart the machine to add it to an availability set. We're going to come back to, we're in 2, okay. See, remember we checked the quota and we mentioned that the quota was good. The reason why you're getting this error, it's not really an error, it's a warning that there might be some quota problems. But like I said, you want to make sure you don't get any warnings. Now, the reason why you might get this or any other quota problems is it's the same reason why when we did it's the same reason why when we did the resource here, at first it didn't show because some of the RM providers are not registered. Now, the easiest way, rather than going in there trying to determine what you need and what you don't need, some of them might register during the migration, but it's better not to take that chance because if something fails in the registration, it means your whole migration fails. So what I normally will do is, or recommend people do is, just go in here to virtual machine. And what we're going to do is just create a virtual machine on the RM. So I'll just do one. It doesn't matter. We're going to nuke it once it's done. What is it? So this one. We want to make sure it's in the resource manager. Test. Oops. Doesn't matter. Let's just go standard. And we'll put in that resource group. And I'm just going to create a new one because I just want to delete the whole thing when I'm done. I'll select any size. It doesn't matter. I'll use a standard disk because I want it to register the RM. I'll just create new. I'll let it create a new virtual network, a new subnet, nothing here, nothing here. And because I wanted to register the availability set here, I'm just going to create a new availability set. DB make test. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and create that VM. The reason why I do that, you can actually go into the resource provider and check and make sure you have all the right ones turned on. Um, but what I do this so that I don't have to go through those trains and forgetting one and then getting you know I don't want to go and I don't want to proceed with my migration when there's a warning because it's supposed to, like I mentioned before, it's supposed to trigger those resource provider and act and register them. But who knows what's going to happen when you do that? There might be a timeout. Nobody knows. So, but creating a VM in the resource manager basically registers all those. That's why the first time you create a VM, if it's a new subscription, the first time you create a VM, it takes a long time than it normally would because it has to register the resource providers for that subscription. All right. So now, while that is going on here, um, let's jump back to our classic portal. Okay, and now VMs are in there. All right. So what we're gonna do now is just give it a few minutes for. Actually, let's see what we have here on MiG 2. So we just have that and that. Okay, and let's just give it a few minutes and for our VM to be created, and then we can proceed. Okay, so once this VM uh, has been deployed, that's all we need for it. We can just go ahead and just nuke it. We don't need it at all. So now let's continue with a migration here. So we go back to our make2 list. So we've created a VM to get rid of these two errors here, and we've added the machine to the availability set to get rid of these ones. And this was just waiting for it to restart. So we can go ahead and actually do another pass at the validation. And I'm feeling confident, so I can just run this one. See, validation passed. But we can still go in there and check what you need to see in the validation file. See how small it is? So the VM is eligible for migration, VM1, and VM2 is also eligible for migration, and the cloud service is eligible for migration, and the VNet is eligible for migration. So which means we're good. So this is what you want to see. This is what this is what determines that you're ready to move forward. I don't like to see any warnings when I do this. So you have to see like one for the VM is good, VM1 is good, VM2 is good, cloud service is good, VNet is good. So once you have all that, you can move down. Oops, let's bring up our little document again. Okay, so once you're done with the validation, now you can prepare the for the migration. So you do the prepare step. Now, what the prepare step does, it takes a copy of everything that's on the classic or the ASM, and it moves it over to ARM. It's like an identical copy, and then you'll see those machines will be in an update state in the ARM portal once the prepare is successful. So let's give it a few minutes. It normally takes about what 5 minutes or so, 5 to 10 minutes for per VM. So sometimes it overlaps. Depending on how many VMs you have, it might take longer. But let's give this a few minutes. Okay, so the whole process took about 5 minutes, and the prepare was successful. So if we jump into the portal now and go to VMs, basically we have 4 VMs. These are the original ones, and these are the ones that got prepared for the migration. And you notice they're in the migrated resource group. And they are updating status. This is fine. It doesn't need to be running. It's just telling you that we've sent everything over and everything is successful. Whenever you're ready right now, do the commit. So I'm just going to go ahead and did I move it out? All right, I'm just going to go ahead and if you scroll down here, that says prepare. So normally, if there was a failure, if there was a failure or an error during the prepare, you will need to do the abort to actually remove the prepare flag, so you can correct whatever it is that failed. But since there was no failure, we're going to move down to the commit. And I'll go ahead and run that. So once the commit is running, you can, if you like to watch it, you can look at the portal. You see how the machines are getting turned off, and as the commit goes, let's okay, still running. Let's make sure there was no errors. Let's refresh. Oh, was that on the old portal? Oh, let's jump in the old portal and see. There you go. Here you go. I guess it hasn't started its process yet. Oh, there you go. See, all the machines are now running. Basically kicked in running on all the machines, and then it's going to go ahead and stop and deallocate. Once you confirm that the ARM machines are running, it will stop and deallocate the classic machine. There we go. No status. Let's refresh again. Well, to save time, I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video until all the process is done. Okay, so the whole process took about, I had 2 VMs, and the whole process took about, 7 minutes. And if you see in the in the new portal now, there's only 2 VMs. The other classic VMs have been deleted, and VMs have been migrated successfully and are running. So now you can either go in here and enable your backup, or get your extension, your diagnostic extension back activated and all that stuff to start your work. I'm just going to go ahead and try to connect to one of these just to confirm that everything is up and running, even though I've never logged into them. But let's see what we have. Perfect. So now the next portion of our migration, if we're following the doc, even though it's not needed to be done on the same day or at the same time, but our next section of the migration is to actually do the oops, is to actually do the storage migration. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue with that. Here it says to set the storage account name, which we've already done in the beginning when we set all our variables. This is the storage account name. So this first section here is checking for virtual machines that are still not migrated in the VNet, um, that have storage, that had VHDs in the storage account, because that would not work. So let's see if there's any. Okay, it comes back with none, which means there are no VHD that are attached to a VM that wasn't migrated. All right, so the next option is checking for any unattached disk. Let me see. Okay, so this is showing us that there are two unattached. Is that these two disks are on this? These two disks are on this storage account, and they're not attached to anything. Now, this is a cause for them. This is not supported. So what that means is we have to delete those VHD in order for the migration to go through. So, so to do that, we go ahead and get the, oops, come on. We'll go ahead and get the name. And we'll go ahead and get the name. Oops. Now, all this can be automated. I just want to make sure that the steps are clear, because sometimes you do automation and people don't know what they're doing with the steps. This is just to make sure the steps are clear. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove those. Okay. And once the disk is successfully removed, I'm just going to run the command one more time so it gives us a blank. Good. No output. Perfect. All right. So now the next step is to is checking for images. Make sure there's no image attached to this storage account. And this is for the OS disk images. Okay, there's none. If there was an image, you use the remove Azure VM image to remove those images, because it's not supported for the migration. Now we're checking for data disk images, which is this one here. There's none either, which means our storage account is good to go with the migration. So like the VNet, you need to prepare it. All the steps we did before was just to validate. Now we're just going to prepare it for migration. Well, once the prepare is going on here, if you check here in the new portal, it would have just like it did for the VM. It's basically creating another storage account in the ARM with the same name and everything. Okay, and once that is done with no errors, if there were some errors or anything, like failures or whatever, you abort to correct whatever was wrong before you do the commit. Since there are no errors here, we just go ahead and proceed with the commit. Most times, if you follow the instructions and check for all the unattached disk and images, uh, you shouldn't have any problem with the migration. If you skip any one of those and they do, like there's an image there or there's a unattached VHD there, then you might have problems with the prepare. So just make sure all the validation steps are done and it's successful. Well, there's no way to check the validation to be successful, but just make sure all the validation steps are done correctly and there's nothing lingering. And it's coming, it's going, it's going. Oh, it says it's successful commit. Wow. So let's refresh. See? And there's only one storage account here. And let's make sure we're still on our VM here. Everything migrated okay. Our VM is working. And that's how you complete ASM to our migration. I try my very best to move as fast as I could so we can squeeze everything under an hour. And we're about 55 minutes. So I think I did a good job. All right. Well, thank you for spending the time to look through this. And like I mentioned before, all this can be scripted. Like removing the extensions can be scripted. Checking for the images if you have like let's say you have like 50 or 100 VMs, it can be scripted. Just want to make sure you know what the steps are and what you need to do before you can proceed with your migration. All right. Thank you for watching and have a great day.